everyone and welcome back to my channel. So for today's video I was inspired by Books and Lala's overly specific book recommendations videos, and I wanted to basically kind of do one of my own, but it's not overly specific. I feel like it's just kind of specific. I don't know, maybe it is overly specific, you guys can tell me. But I'm going to be recommending 5 books today that have the setting of a castle, because through watching another booktuber's videos, they were talking about a book and they said that they're not a huge fan of the castle setting in books, and when she said that I realized I actually love that setting. It's one of my favorites to read about, so I'm going to be recommending 5 of those books today. If you know of any books that have a very similar atmosphere that also take place in a castle that I don't talk about in this video, then definitely let me know, because like I said, that's one of my favorite things to read, so I would absolutely love to know. So without further ado, let's get started, because there are only 5, but I'll ramble on. So the first one is one that I'm currently in the middle of. There are a few of them that I'm currently in the middle of, but I've gotten a feel for the atmosphere, so I think it counts. So the first one is Girls of Paper and Fire by Natasha Nagan, or Nan. I'm not entirely sure on how you pronounce her last name. I apologize if I'm saying it wrong. I am 25 chapters into this one, and the palace in this one is a little bit different because I don't want to give too much away because it's kind of like a secret until you get there, but you get there pretty quickly, so I feel like I'm not giving away anything huge. But if you don't want to know anything, just know that it takes place in a palace and you can move on until the next book. But basically the palace in this one is almost like a mini, really nice village, and there are different courts, and the way that I picture them is that they're different. The way that I picture it in my head while I'm reading this is that it's different like buildings, and there are paths throughout connecting it all, but the palace isn't one huge structure like you would generally think of a castle would be. But I still really enjoy it. It gives off the same atmosphere. This is an Asian high fantasy novel and I'm loving it. I talked about it I think in my January wrap-up a little bit and in my February TBR because I haven't finished it yet, and in a bunch of reading vlogs, so go check those out if you want to hear more specifics. But I'm really enjoying this one. It takes place in a palace and it's amazing. The next one is one that I actually have finished, and that is Falling Kingdoms. So this one does not completely take place in a castle. Some of it takes place in a forest, but the parts that do take place in a castle I feel like are exactly the feeling and the atmosphere that I love when I'm reading a book that takes place in a castle. This is a young adult fantasy series that I have talked about in the past before. I'm not finished with the series. I'm like halfway through the 3rd book and I need to finish that because I've been in the middle of it for like a year. This book series is like a young adult version of Game of Thrones. I've seen a little bit of Game of Thrones and it does kind of remind me of that. It's not as gory, I would say, but it is pretty unforgiving like Game of Thrones. So if you're interested in that, I would recommend this series. It's super easy to fly through. I love it a lot. But yeah, Falling Kingdoms by Morgan Rhodes. The next book is one that loads of people have talked about, and not the entire series takes place in a castle, but the first book definitely does, and again, it gives me the perfect atmospheric vibes. I love it. And that is Throne of Glass by Sarah J. Maas. I was rereading it. I have finished this book and the 2nd book, and the 3rd book actually. So not the whole series takes place in a castle. I won't give away when that stops, but I did really enjoy the atmosphere of this book. Like I said, I am rereading it and it'll probably be a 4 stars instead of a 5-star, but this book was also very good. Everyone knows what this is about. But yeah, this takes place in a castle as well, and I love the dark, eerie, creepy vibe of a castle. So that's something that this and Falling Kingdoms also have in common, because there are so many like corridors and everything that they have to discover, and I love it. The next one is another one that I haven't quite finished, but there are a bunch of secret passages in this one as well, and I'm loving that. I apologize, I got a phone call. But as I was trying to say, the next one also has a bunch of different corridors and creepy passages, and that is The Bells by Danielle Clayton. I'm absolutely loving this one. It's one that I'm also in the middle of. I'm 151 pages into it. I don't know, it just takes place in a castle like the rest of them do. This is another fantasy series. Who's surprised? The last one is a dystopian series that is kind of like a trashy series on BookTube, but I still really enjoyed it. It's a guilty pleasure read. That's what we'll call it. It's a nicer way of putting that. It's a guilty pleasure read on BookTube, and that is the Selection series. This is the Heir because I only own the Heir in physical copy. The rest of them I read on my iPad, but this obviously takes place in a castle. This is a dystopian where the prince has to pick different girls, and it's kind of like The Bachelor, but a castle. Anyway, there are corridors and creepy things and passages and stuff in this one as well, and it's fun. Yeah, it's not as atmospheric as the other ones, so it's not my most recommended if that's exactly what you're looking for out of all of these, but it still has a little element of that, so if you're just looking for a little bit of that and a lot of political intrigue and drama, then I would recommend this one for sure. These are all of the books that I have to recommend to you that take place in a castle today. I really hope that you guys enjoyed this video, and let me know if there are some that I missed. I know Harry Potter's not on this list. I haven't read it yet. I know. It's horrible. I'm getting there, I promise. But yeah, these are all of the books that I have to recommend to you that take place in a castle. I'm sure I missed some, so let me know what I missed. But yeah, I hope that you guys enjoyed, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye!